Howdy, and happy Halloween. My name is Nolan, and me and my friends here just watched Ghostwatch, a 1992 movie with a very interesting presentation and even more interesting history. We'll talk more about it after the intro. So before we get into it, and there's quite a bit to get into, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Nolan, and I'm here with...
I'm Sam.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Jake.
I'm Isaiah.
And before we get into it, there's so much to get into, like I said, so we're gonna lay down a little blanket here. Ghostwatch is a mockumentary presented as if it's a real thing. And whenever it aired, it was sort of controversial because people did not know that it was fake. It aired right at 9 p.m., right after the Watershed, where more mature content is starting to be allowed to play. And it doesn't use mostly actors. It actually uses three very real TV personalities from the BBC that viewers will recognize. It's almost as if it's almost whenever here in America you stay up watching Cartoon Network a little too late at 7 p.m. and King of the Hill starts, but it's instead of King of the Hill, which is just a funny little show, it's a traumatizing and haunting newscast that may or may not be real. The broadcast caused 2 cases of very real PTSD and scared thousands across the United Kingdom. So that sort of brings me to a point of asking, what do you guys think about the ethics of a piece like this, where it's obviously very artistic and there's a lot of intent put into it, but there's sort of a line that's a little bit blurred?
Mm-hmm. Right, there's kind of, I mean, of course, with any artistic piece, you want to allow the artist to express themselves and pursue this kind of vision that they have for a project, but there comes a cost with certain things, especially something where you're not actively telling the viewer this is fictional and you're causing fear in the viewer. And you kind of have to think as an artist, you know, do not do harm, you know, to the people you're trying to show this piece to. And so it's kind of a tricky line to cross, and I feel like it really could have used something at the beginning or the end that said, hey, this is fictional, and help relieve the viewer at some tiny level without compromising the main footage.
Yeah, I also want to add that some, like you said, the line is blurred. Most of it was really well done. Sound design included, which I will talk about. But really what stood out to me, I completely lost my train of thought.
I was gonna bring up how you mentioned at the end that you thought the ending, like the credits that were rolling, were fake, because we weren't entirely sure if it was gonna actually end because it was so like abrupt of an ending, and then it was over, and there was nothing like nothing to like tell that it was fake. Even in the credits, I don't remember exactly, but I think some of you said that there was actual credits for like the people that played like the expert, and it's listed as that on the credits. So even from what I know, I didn't see this exactly, so correct me if I'm wrong, but even the credits don't relieve your worry.
Yeah,
it just says, yeah, this all happened, and these are the people that were in on it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of,
I'm sorry.
No.
I was about to say, the thought came back to my mind. There is a certain period of time, though, where a message has to be getting conveyed to people in any sort of way, whether it be drastic or not. Like what happened, like what happens in history. Like if someone really important, in history dies, how do you present that? So
I think in terms of like ethics, I wonder how easy or difficult, like you don't go out of your way to try and cause mass hysteria through your media, it's clearly this video. I wonder how hard it would be to recreate that in modern times, because most of it, it's through streaming. You can pause it, you can play it, you can rewind.
Well,
you don't have to worry about missing anything.
I
So
think one way that people do it nowadays are ARGs.
yeah,
A lot, especially in like. That's weird. Okay. Anyways, and ARGs, because especially like on social medias and stuff that people will put on, and a lot of the times when we're getting to know them, we don't know if it's an ARG or not. Usually you can tell, but sometimes it's a little bit unsure. So I think that's a good way to like kind of not cause mass hysteria on purpose, but
yeah, like you don't want to go out of your way to
get
do
the
that.
go
But
in that direction.
I don't know.
It's interesting that you would bring up an ARG because those usually happen on like YouTube or a more publicly sourced medium, because this movie, as well as some other things, brought about changes in the way that people could do things with regulations and stuff. This was banned almost as soon as it aired, and it was shown once and never again. So because of how this movie affected people, it also affected the rules and regulations of broadcast television.
Yeah.
So now, like, the only way to do something this effective, I guess, is through like a personal means, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that one thing could have, and it wasn't just a one thing, but you know, this was the big one,
Yeah.
could have such an effect on the market as a whole.
Right.
Like I think at the beginning of the movie, like we all knew going in that it was a mockumentary that people thought was real. You know, we kind of knew that going in. But I think it's kind of, as we're watching that, I'm sitting here like, how could you think this is real at first? But then I realized like, I
As you're
wasn't
watching
alive.
it, I cannot imagine watching this like on TV as like a kid, just like being like, oh well, the news is coming on. Let's just see what's going on, and then all of a sudden this comes on, and there's no preface, nothing, and there's not really a way to fact check a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
So you're just stuck with the idea of like, is this real or am I going crazy?
Yeah,
and
you
then
gotta, like,
it just ends, and then that's it.
You got to put yourself in the perspective of someone watching it in 1992.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, when trigger warnings weren't a thing, which is now really well used
Yeah.
in a lot of media, it really does show that media has evolved to a place where there are times where certain things are appropriate for on air versus not.
Yeah, and it's just kind of crazy that the way they kept hammering it in, like, oh, this is real, because sometimes it would show the phone number on screen, which you look at it and you're like, that is a weird phone number. It was like
81818181.
yeah, it was just a bunch of 8s and 1s, and I think 10 in the beginning, but you know, they flashed a phone number and said you can call us, and then the whole thing was pre-recorded, but there were people to call them, so it felt like, you know, as a viewer you would be like, oh no, people are calling. This is real. I wonder, I should have looked it up, but I wonder what would have happened if you called that number, like if it would have given you a message to say like, hey, this is the news, our lines are full right now, call again later, and just sort of keep up the facade of like, this is real.
That's honestly
But it would have been,
that's really cool.
I would actually want to oppose that view and say it would come to like a scary version of the Rickroll number, where it's like where it plays like a recording of someone creepy speaking, which has
That would be
actually
cool
happened.
too.
Which has happened at a Nine Inch Nails concert. Somebody retrieved a USB, plugged it into their computer, and saw some weird imagery and sounds.
Well, so we've talked about how people watched it like physically, you know, they watched it on TV as a broadcast, but I want to know how you watched it in terms of like viewing technique, because I know there were a time where me and you, we were looking in the background instead of the foreground, and we caught like, oh my gosh, there's pipes is the name of the ghost, in the reflection, and so there were like little details that were never really in the forefront of the image, and I just want to know, like, what were you guys thinking, and what were the ways that you were watching it while you were watching
I feel like it was kind of like a slow start almost, kind of getting you ready for it, kind of being like, oh, nothing's wrong. And then for a while there, I want to say it almost became like a game for me in the sense of like, where's the ghost? Where is he hiding in the background? Because it's kind of fun. I think I spotted him 4 times.
I didn't spot him at any point in time, so I
Really?
feel very left out of the
Okay,
situation. I did not pick him up at any point in time.
I was sitting right next to you.
I know. So I guess I would have been the few that didn't see it at all, but
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of it, is that it was like such a detail, like
Right.
with viewers across the country being like, oh my gosh, there he was. Oh, he was there this time, and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, it kind of puts you in the shoes of the actual viewer. I mean, obviously you are a viewer, but a viewer in this universe that they're creating, because you are seeing these things in the beginning of the film, and you're like, did I just see that? And then the main guy will be like, oh, I don't see anything there. I don't think, and you're like, no, I definitely saw that. And then later on, when they just kind of quickly pass over, you're like, okay, I definitely saw something, and no one picks it up. So as a viewer, you're kind of like, okay, am I losing my mind too? It kind of puts you in the shoes of someone who's seeing things they can't explain. And for me, I really enjoy ARGs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I like to immerse myself in these things, and I tried not to overthink it, so I could really enjoy it and kind of be like, oh, kind of play pretend and like be like, oh, what if this was real? So I think that's the best way to enjoy this, and that kind of goes on that line of, if I'm forcing myself to believe it's real, is that dangerous? And what kind of viewer is watching this who may not be in the right state, who believes this is real? I mean, I'm able to process these things, but what if someone can't do the same things I'm able to do? So
there was actually a big movement within the U.S. when the Truman Show aired, first went into theaters, and people started losing their minds over, is my life even real? Is it all just a fallacy? And that really just, I kind of relate that to this, because it was like the difference between real and fake.
Media about media can be tricky for sure.
Yes, of course.
But this one specifically, I mean, and of course the Truman Show is like my favorite movie ever, so I'm not dissing it, but I do want to focus on this one because just everything about it was so, it almost, I don't even know how to describe it, because it feels improvised. It's presented as improvised, just because it's like, okay, here's me, I'm the presenter, and I have my camera guy and my audio guy, and they're following me to this house. But everything was so deliberate. Every camera movement, they had to make sure like there were things in reflections and in the backgrounds, and of course, everything just feels so real, but so calculated at the same time. And I love that they had that balance. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, you don't see very much, but you hear a lot.
Yeah.
And they introduce the sound guy as like this great sound guy. He can catch a ant crawling from a mile away or something.
Yeah.
And so I just want to talk about like the sounds and how they affected the viewing experience, because I know, Jake, you're a sound guy.
Yes. So a lot of what happened was tape recorded. So usually what would happen back then in the 90s, you wouldn't have as big of a tape recorder, but actual tape, analog tape reel, you would slow it down, and then you'd hear this very low pitch, and that's because it's playing at a certain frequency based on the speed that the tape is playing. So for instance, it's kind of like a movie. If you were like an old movie, if you were to play a movie at like a very old movie theater, bit by bit, it would just be one picture after the other, and it would feel like Into the Spider-Verse, but with actual people in it. Like, you get what I'm saying? Because it's just like frames per second on a computer, or in this case, bits per second for sound. So what they did is that they slowed it down from a tape standpoint, and then at times they would actually play those sounds. I know this technique. They would play those sounds off of like a mini camcorder, where you would remember where they were getting the sounds. A lot of that house was probably gutted in order to record those sounds, because usually what happens is that loudspeakers and stuff like that can really utilize that ability to go through very thin surfaces.
Wow.
So
That's super interesting.
So cool.
And it makes a ton of sense, since
Yeah.
like every environment in the house had such distinct sounds to go along
Right.
with it.
and
I wanna
literally,
look into that
if
Yeah, me too.
yeah, so literally, I keep saying literally. I mean, but I once messed with, as an audio guy, I once messed with putting a actual tape, like a tape deck, into, like I recorded putting a tape into the tape machine in my car, and then I slowed it down, and the results were fascinating. You could hear more. You could literally hear that as you pitched it down in certain ways. So literally, if you were to pitch it down, for instance, in the texture mode in what my DAW is, Ableton, you would hear this really freaky, like alien sort of. But yeah, anyway, it's really cool how they did all these sounds and mainly tape. So.
Yeah, because we hear quite a bit of those groaning noises in the movie. Of course, I would have loved to see more of Pipes or what was it, Mother Set and the other. I don't know if they were.
I think they were like.
Were they the
same
ghost?
person? They were like, it could have been this person. It could have been this person. But Pipes itself was the ghost that was given the name. But.
Yeah, so I would have loved to see more, but hearing it like, and they mentioned like, oh, cats ate his face. So we hear cats like freaking out sometimes. We hear a lot of banging on walls, and we see the picture fall off, and oh my God! So the moment where we realize like, oh, things are wrong.
Yeah.
With the recording, because we're in the studio for a little bit and everything's fine, and then we see the expert ghostologist, whatever, see on the TV like, hey, wait a minute, that picture fell. This is old footage. The ghost is in the machine. It's messing with the tape.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And
I actually kind of picked on that up a bit sooner. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
But
go
like
ahead.
as soon as they showed them, they're like, we're having a happy board game. I was
Yeah,
like,
that
well,
felt
then
weird.
why wouldn't they connect with the people? Why would they be playing a board game when there was a stuff flying off the walls and banging on everything? It's just like,
and what bothered me is that the like main interview guy, like the guy that's like hosting the whole thing, was like, oh, none of it's real. Like pretty quickly, he's all of a sudden like, oh, well, it's not real. None of it's happening. It's all fake. Never mind.
seemed like they're all happy.
What? Did you not? Were you not here?
That guy's got blood coming out of his head, but okay.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that was weird, but I thought that was a really cool thing.
Yeah, that part especially was probably one of my favorite bits in the entire thing, and I feel like for me, I feel like they could have utilized Pipes a little bit better. I feel like there was so many opportunities to have these kind of creepy moments besides him just like standing there like this. Yeah. And it's like, okay, this is like.
I mean.
I wish they would have used it like they used the infrared. That would have been a
perfect opportunity.
Yes.
They set it up in the beginning, and then later on it happens. I'm like, okay, they're gonna do something crazy.
I thought there was gonna be just like a figure in the background.
Right? Yeah, something like that.
Highlighted. There's
or
nothing.
just like constantly, I was looking in the mirrors and stuff like that, and I just couldn't catch anything. Maybe I'm just missing all these hidden details, but I was looking for them actively, and I could not. There's so many things where it's like, oh, if I was doing that, I would put them right in theirs, and the viewer could see it.
I think the point is that we're supposed to, since the idea of ghosts are kind of like, are they real, are they not type of thing. I think they was trying to show us that like things are happening, but it's supposed to make us think that they're crazy, because that's what they've been feeling this whole time. That every time, because like then the daughter was doing things, so everything seemed like nothing was happening, that it was all an explanation for everything that's been going up until that point. And if you're really paying attention and actually cared, then you'd pick up on it. But if you were just watching it like kind of like I was, just like kind of watching it and seeing what was going on, it kind of just seems like things are happening, but there's a reason for almost all of it. So I think that was done on purpose a little bit, but I do kind of agree with you that I wish they pushed it a little bit more, but considering this was aired on TV, I don't think they could do too much cinematography, or else it would be a little weird.
Fun fact for y'all, did you know that female screams are used most in zombie horror films, as well as other sort of horror films that deal with the paranormal? Because usually what happens is that if a scream is, we're about to do ratings, but if a scream is slowed down on a tape, then it sounds like a zombie scream. I can't. Anyway.
That's very interesting. So, as we sort of wrap this up, what did you guys think of this? What was your final ratings?
I mean, for me, I'd have to give it probably a 9. I think I
Wow.
really enjoyed it, and if I take away the controversy of it, I really enjoy the idea of something that is so well made as a mockumentary type of thing.
I would go for a 9 as well. 1 because of the sound design, and 2 because of the way that things were presented in real life. Yeah.
8 or 9. It was a little irresponsible, but you know, we all have our faults.
Yeah, I would give it an 8. Typically, I would say like this isn't my kind of movie because let's be real, I always say that. But honestly, I was feeling that tension. I liked how they presented it. I'm gonna go probably show it to other people. So 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8 too. I'm gonna what they said. Yeah.
Ditto.
And well, there we go. We recommend the movie, and we had a lot of fun with it. And we're getting a little bit of disturbance from the studios. Is everything going? Everything okay? Oh God.
Studio's completely dark. It's just blackness now. All the lights have failed. The power's gone off